In a scene that encapsulated the accumulated weariness of thousands of British citizens, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, he experienced an awkward and revealing moment in public. It wasn't during a scheduled interview or in Parliament under formal protocol, but in the most unexpected place. A train station. What seemed like just another day in the Labour leader's busy schedule ended up becoming a viral episode, loaded with symbolism, frustration, and stark truth. It all started with a delay. Starmer had been in northwest England to attend an important press conference. However, the train that was supposed to take him back from the station Euston, he suffered glitches and barely made it past the first platform. This not only affected the event's logistics, but also forced him to return in an improvised and above all exposed manner. There were no more advisors, friendly cameras, or controlled speeches. Just him, the crowd, and the discontent. As he hurried through the station, his eyes lowered and his steps firm, like someone who wants to go unnoticed. A man spotted him. Without hesitation, he approached him, and he let out a scream that resonated like an echo of thousands of invisible voices. These weren't senseless insults, but rather a mixture of mockery and rebuke, disguised as a football chant, but laden with political undertones. This man wasn't armed with banners or surrounded by journalists. His only weapon was his voice, the same one that so many Britons feel stifled after years of broken promises, empty speeches, and a politics increasingly disconnected from everyday reality. Starmer tried to maintain his composure. He continued walking without stopping, but the scene didn't fade away. On the contrary, every step he took seemed to fuel the citizens' fury, who kept singing, pointing at him and exposing him to the others present. Some took out their phones, others simply watched, silently, but with expressions that spoke volumes. At a time when most political leaders prefer to move in carefully controlled bubbles, what happened there was brutally authentic. There was no editing, no advisors intervening. It was a direct clash between a representative of power and one of his constituents, in the most ordinary place, at the most ordinary time, with nothing to intervene. And yet, that moment was anything but ordinary. The moment began to attract attention. Passengers waiting for their trains, station employees, and even some tourists passing by stopped to observe what was happening. Not everyone immediately knew it was the Prime Minister, but it was enough to hear the tone of the chant, the sharp sarcasm in the words, to understand that what was happening was not a simple outburst. The figure of Keir Starmer, usually associated with composure and careful rhetoric, was now facing something she could not control. The furious spontaneity of an ordinary citizen, a man without a microphone, without institutional support, but with a painful clarity. He didn't trust him, didn't believe his words, and he was letting him know without filters, without diplomacy. The chant wasn't violent in its form, but it was in its emotional charge. It mixed irony with accusations, decrying the problems that millions face every day. The lack of opportunities, the deteriorating health system, impossible prices, insecurity, and, above all, abandonment. That feeling that politicians make promises during campaigns, but once elected, disappear behind walls of indifference. Starmer, although surrounded by a couple of aides and a discreet bodyguard, did not react. He didn't answer. He didn't turn around. He didn't try to engage in dialogue. He just kept walking, as if silence were his only shield. But that silence also spoke volumes, because it wasn't just one man confronting him. It was an entire country, through that voice, demanding accountability. And that was the most powerful thing about the scene. Its naturalness. It wasn't an organized protest, nor an armed act by the opposition. It was an authentic expression of the social exhaustion felt in the streets, on the trains, in British homes. The kind of truth that can't be programmed or silenced with official statements. Eventually, tensions escalated enough for a police officer will approach the citizen. He didn't arrest him, but he did ask him to calm down and not obstruct the passage. The man complied, although he continued to mutter resentful words as Starmer disappeared into the crowd, visibly uncomfortable, but without saying a word. That meeting, brief but powerful, it didn't take long for it to go viral. Several witnesses had recorded fragments with their phones, and soon social media was flooded with videos, comments, and reactions. Some celebrated the man's bravery, others criticized the Prime Minister's lack of response, but almost everyone agreed on one thing. What happened at that station was a clear reflection of the moment the country is experiencing. A nation divided, tired, and increasingly distrustful of those who should represent it. The images spread across digital platforms like a spark igniting a dry field. In a matter of hours, what had been a spontaneous exchange at a train station became a national symbol of silent protest, a warning to all politicians. The people watch, listen, and when they speak, they do not do so to please. The reactions were immediate. On X, formerly Twitter, hashtags related to the incident trended. Some called it the most honest moment of the year. Others hailed it as the real accountability you don't see in Westminster. Even people who didn't politically sympathize with the man who berated Starmer recognized something important. What he said was not just his, it was an echo of everyone. What's interesting is that neither the traditional media nor official government spokespersons issued any statements on the matter in the early hours. The institutional silence contrasted with the relentless noise of the digital streets. Meanwhile, the man, whose name was not yet publicly known, was already being celebrated as a symbol of civic courage. That anonymous face with improvised words and contained rage, he achieved something that many political speeches have failed to achieve in years: to move consciences. The video made something deeper clear. The British are not asleep. They're watching, analyzing, waiting. And when they get tired of waiting, they speak, even if it's at a train station, without official cameras, without makeup. Because true democracy doesn't happen only at the ballot box, but in the moments when the people look power in the eye and do not lower their gaze. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a warning, a sign that speeches are no longer enough, that patience has run out, and that, as a nation, we have crossed a threshold. Because at the end of the day, political leaders may surround themselves with advisors, scripted speeches, media filters, and carefully orchestrated events. But none of that completely shields them from the spontaneous judgment of the people. That judgment isn't always shouted at rallies or written in editorials. Sometimes it emerges like this, raw in the middle of a station, without warning, and with more legitimacy than any press release. And although some try to minimize what happened, calling it a simple anecdote without importance, the truth is that these types of moments, they are the ones that leave scars. Because they remember that the citizens are still there, observing, thinking, and demanding, even when their backs are turned. Let no one be mistaken. What happened with Starmer can happen again, and not just with him. Now the question is, what do you think about what happened? Do you think it was disrespectful or a necessary act of civic courage? I'll read your comments. Your opinion is important, and if you want to keep up to date with these kinds of moments that mark the political history of the United Kingdom, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and don't forget to leave us a like if you found this video relevant. See you next time. Thanks for watching. And even if the government tries to carry on as if nothing happened, the impact is already done. What started as a simple stop at a train station became another crack in the wall of institutional indifference. Because when an ordinary citizen speaks up without fear, without a script, and with the weight of a frustrated society behind them, it's not just a rant, it's a powerful reminder that power is neither absolute nor permanent. From coffee shops to subway cars, the moment slipped into every conversation. How long will they keep ignoring the collective exhaustion? How many more will have to speak up without microphones for someone to finally listen? The truth is, that scene left a mark no political strategist or media filter will be able to erase anytime soon.